All right, do I just click on got it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Laura Lyndhurst. Hiya, Laura. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Laura Lyndhurst, which is a pen name because I was a bit shy of putting my real self out there when I first started the publishing thing. I'm in my 60s. I spent a lot of time traveling with my husband's work forever. Didn't get to university in my teens, but I got there in my 40s when we'd settled down a bit and stopped traveling, at which time I started writing bits and pieces, not exactly a journal, just jotting down ideas I had. And I did that for a few years. And then a couple of years ago, I had an idea for a book, started putting that together. And it all went a lot faster, and published it just over a year ago in May 2020 when we were locked down, which, yeah, I enjoy writing. I've written a few more books since and self-published them all. I tried some traditional publishers, but no dice. So I don't have ages to keep going to loads of people, being a lot older. But I enjoy it. I enjoy writing. I read tons, review everything I read these days. I exercise to try and keep a bit fit. But I do like eating and drinking, and I look forward to the weekend when there's going to be some pizza and wine or whatever in the offing. Like going for long walks. Live in the country now. Came from London originally, but lived in some fairly quiet places, so I'm used to that. So we live in the middle of nowhere now, basically, which is nice and quiet for writing. So I'm quite lucky. I stopped working when we moved here just over 5 years ago. I had to give up my work, and there's not much around where we live in this quiet little part of Lincolnshire. So I was quite happy to stop and be home and do things I enjoy for change, which includes reading and writing. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Did you always want to write?
I wasn't really someone thinking I'm going to write a book one day. Not really. I enjoyed school when I was young. It worked for me. I know a lot of people it didn't work, but sitting, being talked to in a classroom and taking notes, and well, I suppose reading, really. I mean, I read from very young. And maybe that led into wanting to write. I just love getting lost in a book. I used to watch, say this when I was very young, on Sundays the BBC used to, around tea time, sort of 5 o'clock, they'd make a dramatisation of some classic book, and I used to love watching these. And then they were doing one, and I always go on about this, but they were doing one, it was Lorna Doone, and it was so good. I thought, I can't wait for this thing to end, you know, one episode a week. So I got my saved up pocket money and went to Smith's and bought the book, and then went home and just read the book under the bed covers, got it read. So I knew what was going to happen. And by the time the end of the series came, it was really quite disappointing, because the villain has this he gets sucked down into a bog. Oops, I've just spoiled it for anyone who doesn't know it. But and of course, they couldn't do that. They didn't have special effects back then. So he just splashed around in a puddle for a bit and went underneath. And then as soon as they said cut, came out quite fast, presumably. But I just loved these books. And doing these dramatizations on television was a really great way for me of thinking, oh, I love this, I'm going to go and get the book. And then you read a lot, and I suppose at some point I thought, well, I could do this. I mean, I read anything, comics, books. I remember buying some Barbara Cartland and going through those. Jean Plaidy, if you remember every Jean Plaidy book ever written. I had I didn't have a bookshelf, I had stacks of them sitting on the floor when I was in my late teens. And we were traveling off abroad, so they had to go because you can only take so much. So they went, but I know, just like reading. And then I went to university in my 40s, and so then I started writing essays about the books I read. And even about books that I didn't like that I'd had to read. You know, you're just doing university yourself, aren't you? And you're finished now, yeah.
Just finished, yeah.
Yeah, but I was English literature that was me. But sometimes you think, oh God, really, I've got to read that. But you read it because it's on the syllabus, and sometimes there's not a lot of choice and you've got to write an essay on it. So it's a good discipline, and I'd get ready with the computer and loads of reference books and sit there and think, right, today you create. So you get the screen, you put the title up, and then you type the first word and you think, yes, I've started. But it was, and it's, I suppose, yes, from writing essays, which putting together a good essay where it flows through and you've got the beginning, the middle, the end, and you, what is it? Tell them what you're going to tell them it, and then tell them what you told them. You know, that sort of formula of it, making sure you've done that. And I kind of enjoyed the discipline of that. So I suppose when I had an idea that I thought I could write a book about this, you know, as you do, the training worked quite well in making sure that I think, okay, well, I'll start there and I'll end there, and maybe, you know, it's like planning an essay. You know, when you sit down in the exam and they say make a plan, so you spend like a minute going, do this, do this, do this, and then you go away and you go wildly everywhere else but around the plan. But it's a useful way of doing it. So yeah, and somehow I just had an idea and thought, oh, I could do something with that. So I did, and then having said that, I've got loads of bits and pieces in the laptop that never came to anything. And I don't say they won't, you know, they seemed like a good idea at the time. And then at a certain point, I think you think, yeah, do you know, I don't think this is actually that good. It doesn't feel as good as when I thought of it. So they're sitting there, but they won't go to waste. I mean, I don't know about you, but I chop bits out and think, oh, I could use that, you know, ultimate recycling. So at some point they'll go somewhere. But yeah, so I just kind of got into it, and you have that time of thinking, am I really a writer? I'm a bit of a fraud, really, aren't I? But then you publish it and you see it on Amazon, you think, no, I'm there on Amazon, so I must be a writer. Yeah, so it's just something that came late, I suppose, but just grew from the reading into the university reading and writing, and it just took it a step further, I suppose.
And what made you choose the genre that you write in?
Difficult, because I started off doing a sort of literary fiction, and I've just finished the third book of that. It was going to be one standalone book, and I just had this idea and thought, yeah, that's something. I think there's a message, there's something to be said about that. And it was one standalone book, but when I finished it, you know, I think there's another story to tell here, so I did another one. Which the first book people don't like. That's My Fairy Tales Don't Come True. It does okay, but it was my first one. The second one, which is called Degenerate, Regenerate, people liked a lot more. And it's got a bit of a mystery element in it, which isn't in the first book, apart from, yeah, you want to know what happens. But this one, there's a bit of a whodunit to solve. And then the third one, which I've just finished, and I've just been sitting down, putting it on Kindle Direct and what have you this morning. It's a story, and then towards the end, it gets a bit, what's going to happen, who's doing that, what's going, so there's a little bit of something a bit mysterious then. But the book that I'm plugging at the moment, can I hold it up?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
This one, and you know what you did. This is a psychological suspense thriller. I'm told it is a thriller. I wasn't sure, but people that have read it said, yeah, you can call it a thriller. It was just an idea I had one day. I'd had a conversation with somebody about something, and this idea occurred to me. And I've been reading, I like these. I've been reading a lot of them, because when I started writing, I went online, read lots of advice, and it said, you know, especially if you're going to be pitching agents and publishers, it's good to be able to say to them, oh yeah, you represent so-and-so, and I love his or her books, read loads of them, I admire them, and that's why I came to you. Well, I realized I wasn't actually reading, there was no one I recognized, because I tend to read the classics. That's just, I mean, I read everything as a child, and then at some point when I started doing A-levels in university, the classics, well, it just was, so that was what I was reading. And I thought, well, I need to start reading some more contemporary stuff, you know, authors who are actually alive and writing now. So I did that, and I took out a Kindle Unlimited subscription, because that's a really good way of doing it. And you can go in and think, oh yeah, look, and you're allowed to, I said, you're allowed 10 at a go. So I go in and there's all these psychological suspense thrillers. And, oh, great, yeah, I'll have that one, that one, that one. And I've got a whole line of them waiting to be read. I mean, I've never got less than 10 books in there. But I started reading these because I quite liked them. So I got an idea of how the genre works. And I went online, and there was someone who wrote them and put up things to do and things to don't do, and start with a really good beginning, start with some really massive happening that people think, wow, what's going to top that? What's going to come after that? So I read up on how to do it, and having read a lot, I got some idea. So I thought, well, I'll just give that a go. And it was quite good fun to write, I have to admit. So I'm probably going to stick with that. I mean, I've got the literary fiction trilogy finished now, and I'll push the third book out later in the week. And I've done some poetry, which was an accident that came about through one of my Facebook groups. But and I keep up with that because it was something I never expected to do. So I still doodle out the odd poem, and I've got enough together now that I can probably put another little book out soon. But the psychological suspense stuff does seem to have quite a following and quite an audience and quite a market. And What You Did is certainly doing a lot. It's doing a lot better, a lot faster than the others. It's the kind of thing people like. They want to know what's going to happen in the end. It staggers through from one momentous happening to another. And I had great fun. I made friends with Steve, who's my beta reader, around the time I was just about to publish it. And I said, well, do you want to beta read this for me? He said, yeah, absolutely. And then he kept sending me emails saying, this is going to happen, isn't it? I know who it is. It's got to be this person doing it. And I think this is great, because either he was right or he was way off beam. But it was great fun having someone who was going through it the first time saying, it's got to be this person, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it's that person because, and then giving me all the evidence for it. And you think, yeah, well, you're just going to have to keep reading and see. Yeah, it's quite a fun genre in its way. So yeah, it was just an idea. I'd been reading them, and I suppose if I hadn't been reading them, the idea would have just gone straight over my head, and I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But something came, and I'd had a conversation with someone, and something like this came up, and I thought, no, I think there's a book in that. So it took me there, and it's strange, isn't it? But it wasn't anywhere I was expecting to go. But yeah, so I've got another one partly written, which was another one of these ideas I had and I'd shelved. And then I thought, okay, if I get that and I change it a bit, I can turn it into psychological suspense. So that's where it's now headed. So, and I hadn't written so much of it that it was really difficult to change. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna keep on with that. Although coming up, when you see the amount of books out there and the amount of ideas the authors come up with, you think, how do you think of that? But you've got to constantly think up something new and work it so that people aren't going to guess it too easily, because who wants to do that? But then when you do guess something, that's a good feeling. So yeah, I'm psychological suspense. I think that's a good place to be.
If you were to put yourself in any of your books as a character, which book would you like to be a character in?
One of my own ones.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh, that's so difficult. Probably You Know What You Did. I mean, I put bits of me in them anyway. I mean, every book there's got something. And I hasten to add that I'm not the main character in Fairy Tales Don't Come True. I've never walked on that side of life. But some of the experiences that people have are just things that I've noticed in life. And I do put me in. I mean, characters talk for me anyway. You know, I'll give my opinion to someone. Think, you know, I really want to say that. I'd like to get that out there. So you give it to a character to say. So probably You Know What You Did, and I won't say why, because it would spoil it. But yeah, there's quite a lot, and there's something rather pleasant when you can do things in a book that you'd love to do in real life, but you'd probably end up behind bars for doing it. Okay, so I'll just do it in the book instead, and you get that lovely relieved feeling of, yeah, that's that. If only I could do that myself. Which, yeah, no, it probably wouldn't be a good idea if I did. But yeah, I think I'd be in there. And I've got some other ideas where there's probably some more of me going in at some point. But yeah, I would probably be someone in that book. There's a couple of candidates. They've probably got bits of me there anyway. The good bits, obviously. There's no bad stuff going on here.
Do you hide any secret jokes or messages in your books?
That's I've got one. I'm not sure how secret they are. It's that's difficult, really. I think there are things. I mean, I put a friend's name in right at the end of You Know What You Did, and it was near the end, so it's not a character that's going to be developed. But she got on WhatsApp and came and said, I just turned the page and found my name. Thank you. And I thought, isn't that sweet? You know, because she knows that it's her. Obviously, she knows that I know someone, and it's quite an unusual name, so she knows that it's her name I've borrowed. And I do that. I've got a few names in there that are people I know. And I've got a character in the book that I'm just about to publish who he'll know who he is when he reads it. So yeah, people, and sometimes there are bits and pieces that you think, oh, I wonder if so-and-so will remember that. Little instances, little happenings. And you think, is that person going to say to me, you've put this in, I remember that happened years and years and years ago. In fact, for an example, and the people, they've probably forgotten, but it was quite interesting. We had an instance years ago. We were on a beach in Cyprus with friends who lived there, and we could see something kind of moving across the sea towards the shore. It was a quiet day. The sea wasn't full of people or anything. Anyway, this thing got closer and closer and closer, and eventually it washed up on the beach. And this sounds really awful, but it was a dead cow. And it must have fallen overboard from a freighter transporting live animals and drowned, poor thing. Anyway, and then so it was there and it wasn't in a nice condition. So somebody had to contact the authorities to do something about it. But I put it in one of my books because it just helped to make a point that yes, you can. If you in the book, there are people out in a boat and they're accustomed to the seashore always looking the same. And if there's something there that isn't normally there, they'll pick up on it. So I gave this example of once when a dead cow had washed ashore. And I thought, I wonder if that friend will get in touch with me and say, I remember when that happened, but she hasn't yet. So maybe she's forgotten. But yeah, there's little bits and pieces in there, and sometimes people pick up on them, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. But yeah, they have to go in because yeah, we go through life. We just pick things up, don't we? And think, yeah, I'll put that in. I'll put that in. And if so and so says, I remember that, then that's a good thing. But otherwise, it's genuine, it's authentic because it has happened, and I've seen it happen. So, but jokes, not that I can think of. But I'll let you know if I come up with anything.
What's the most interesting thing you found doing research for your books?
Let me think. I found out. Oh, well, the first book, Fairy Tales Don't Come True, that I wrote. I'd heard somewhere that there's what could be called an alarming trend for students in this day of massive student loans and coming out with a huge debt round your neck, which I hope you haven't. There's a trend of students, not exclusively female, but mainly going into the sex industry to pay their way through university, which sounds a bit dodgy to say the least to me, because you don't quite know what you might be getting into, if you see what I mean. So I wrote the first book based on that. So then I was doing all this research on prostitution, on sugar daddies, on drugs, because of course drugs come into it at a certain point. Yeah, all the kind of things you can, this kind of typical sentence for dealing in class A drugs or lower class drugs, all the various slang names for drugs. So I now know a bit about that. Yeah, it just kind of went on from there. Prisons, you know, you put someone in prison in a book, well, are they going to have their own cell, or are they going to be sharing? How does that work? So I got into, and there are prisons where they have dormitories, you know, so you can be in with about another 5 people. So this is all stuff that was completely new to me. And the most difficult, and I only needed it for a small scene, but how the law works. Now, I worked as a receptionist for a legal firm once, and, you know, legalese, I mean, it ties you up in knots. You see these documents, but I just, and it was only a small scene, but I had to get it right, you know, whether someone could get done for contempt of court, what happens to become a hostile witness, you know, these things. And there was an awful lot of pouring through online documents just to make sure that I'd got that right. And it was a bit hard on myself, I suppose, because I've seen other authors since who said in their introductions or whatever on their books, all the mistakes are my own. You know, I did this research, it's not my area, and I think I've got it right. But if I've got it wrong, big apologies. So, and I probably should have said that, but I didn't know to. But no one's got on to me yet and said, you got that wrong. So I'm hoping that I got it right. But yeah, I suppose, yeah, this whole legal system, prison system, how you get sent to prison in the first place, working on the wrong side of the law. Yeah, things like prostitution, that it's, oh, hang on, now what was it? It's not illegal, but how you go about it could be illegal. Like, you know, soliciting in the street or putting cards in a phone box, or if you're working solo from your flat, you're okay. But if you've got someone else working, if there are 2 of you or more, then it constitutes a brothel and you're illegal. I mean, this is such great knowledge. Yeah, this is gonna. I don't think I'm going to be looking at a future career in that direction. But yeah, but you go off, and it is so great that there's so much online that we can use these days. I mean, when I was at school all those years ago, but, you know, you couldn't, it was all books, and you'd want to find something. I mean, I used to write to the BBC to find out what the theme music to a certain program was, and they always wrote back and told me, so then I could trot off and get the record of it. But now you can just go online and check something. And I'm just so pleased that we're able to do that, because how people managed in the past, I mean, it meant days trogging off to sit at the British Library or wherever and pore through loads of books. And it must have been really difficult. And it's like having computers now. I mean, how the likes of Dickens and Eliot and all the Hardy managed just with paper and a fairly basic sort of pen, you know. What do you do when you think, no, I don't want that there, I want it 2 chapters down? And I just can't imagine trying to manage that much paper and move things around, but they did it. So all credit to them, and massive amounts of respect, I think.
Yeah, I was a mature student as well, and my uni friends generally asked me how we used to find stuff out before computers, because they can't believe that I was at school before Google existed. Like, we had books, yeah. We had to use books. What else do you think we done? Like,
yeah.
They were absolutely gobsmacked that there was a time when we done homework without the internet.
Yeah.
Quite a depressing conversation.
Yeah, well, it's just the norm now, isn't it? But I'm very glad of it. It's just opened up a whole world. You know, you sit watching the television and say, oh, I remember that person. Oh, they look familiar. Who is that? So you go off and check the cast list, find the actor, and oh yeah, I remember them in that program. But, you know, just on a light level. But for other things, you can look up all sorts of battles, wars. Well, my husband's big on, he's looking through our ancestry at the moment, and he's joined Ancestry. But the documents he finds and the things he finds out about, you know, people up our family trees, it's quite incredible, the information that's there. But, you know, there you hit a point where you can't find something, and that can be frustrating. It just means somebody, or there's writing you can't read, and we'll be sitting and we'll say, can you read that? And it's someone's scrawl, and you're trying to work out what the name of the street is, and it's really difficult. But at least it's there, and someone has gone through and copied all these documents and put them up on, you know, into these data banks so that we can look them up on the internet. That's quite incredible. So yeah, we have come a very long way, and I'm not sure I'd have got the book out or any of the books out if I'd been around before computing. I can read them, I can find them, but it just takes so much longer to do it all, I think.
Yeah. Completely lost my train of thought for a second.
I'm trying to think where we're at.
Yeah.
Oh, I've lost you. It was trick. Do I put tricks and jokes in? No, sorry, I got onto the internet. Oh, the most interesting piece of research I found, wasn't it? And I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Other writers and researching. But yeah, the fact we've got all this that we can research.
Is there anything you absolutely will not write about?
I'm not big on horror type things. I've never gone there. Even I was the kid hiding behind the sofa from the Daleks and the Cyberman because we had Doctor Who back then too. I'm not big on that. I'm not very good at creating fantasy worlds. I mean, my friend Steve, who beta reads his books, he's created a whole future society. You know, he's even got a sort of constitution in the back of one of the books of their laws and what was laid down for them to do, and so much detail in their living conditions. And this is, you know, basically we've ruined, you know, the usual thing, we've ruined the world, and the people that are left are trying to put it back together in some shape or form. So it's not a fantasy like or Game of Thrones or something like that, or Lord of the Rings. It's more dystopian future of this world, but nevertheless it's a whole new world, and they've got to have rules, they've got to have regulations, they've got to have ways to make living easy or easier than it could be. Everything's gone back and got a bit more primitive than it was, and they're traveling at some point through Sydney, I think it is, and the place is falling apart because it's just decaying. But I could, so either that or a Game of Thrones type fantasy kingdom somewhere. It's not really the kind of thing I do, and I like reading those things. Although it took me a very long time to read Lord of the Rings, I kept trying it, and I'd get to about page 11. This was a very long time ago, and I couldn't get past it. And then they made the films, and when I'd seen 2, I went off and got the books, and then it was a hell of a lot easier to read them because I'd got the pictures from the film in my head of what people looked like, what the places they lived in looked like. I'm not very creative in that way, so I probably wouldn't ever do anything on those lines. And again, there's I've read a lot of police type crime novels, but there's, and I could look it up if I wanted, I suppose, you know, the way and again I had to put a scene with some police in, you know, what you did, and that wasn't too difficult because I'd sort of worked out from a lot of those books I'd read how when the police come to your house and there's 2 of them to question you, and just the basics. But I'd need to know an awful lot more about how a police station works, and I guess I'm probably not interested enough to go to that length to write about it. So I can't say I just write what I know, because I think an awful lot of what I've written so far is stuff that I don't know. But if I stuck to what I know, then I probably wouldn't get a whole book out. It's got to be something that really grabs the imagination, or grabs my, yeah, I think that's a good idea and I'm going to go there kind of thing. So yeah, I love romance, although those sort of things, the future kingdoms, the fantasy kingdoms, the stuff I write pretty much does resemble a section of the world as we know it now. I'm not good at going off planet, put it that way, or going further on planet down the road when I don't know what might be going on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Do you have any phobias, and would you write about those?
Oh, I used to hate, I don't even want to, there's nasty wiggly kind of creatures that you find in gardens, slugs and snails. Let's go there. Ugh, yuck. not that I quite see how I'd get them in a book, but there's probably somewhere. Yeah, actually, I did. I read a book where, a couple got lost in a jungle, and this woman ended up covered in these horrible white leeches that just sort of got onto her. No, I hate that. And it made me feel quite ill. So I wouldn't be, they're things I don't like particularly. In fact, find them rather horrible. I'm not great with snakes. I'm not terrified of snakes. Although put one in the same room, I probably would be. I'm better with spiders than I was if they're not too big. If they get bigger than that, then sort of circumference-wise, I'm probably not too happy. But in general, I'll pick them up in a tissue and get them out of the house. I get rid of wasps. I'm not bad with wasps. A lot of people hate wasps. I've been with people going crazy because there's a wasp in the room. I can shift those, but no, it's nasty. I saw one of the King Kong films where, I can't remember who was in it, but the crew of the ship were getting eaten by these nasty giant slugs and things, and that freaked me out. And I didn't sleep too well that night. It sounds awful, doesn't it? But just because you're older doesn't mean there aren't things that really do not give you massive creeps. Yeah, so that kind of thing will not appear in any of my books. Yeah, no, I wouldn't go there.
If you're able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you like to spend a day with?
Faye Weldon's up there, I think. I love all her. I've read some of her. Yeah, I've read loads of her books. I'm working through some of her older books that are all on Kindle Unlimited. So I have to take a break every now and then, but there's still quite a few there. So I'm working my way through reading Faye Weldon's. I think she teaches down somewhere in the Bristol Bath area, university down there. So yeah, that would probably be a very interesting day. She's changed genre now. I think she's done everything she could on feminist writing, and now she's doing what looks like historical fiction, which doesn't massively appeal to me, so I don't tend to read it. Although I liked it when I read all those Jean Plaidy books. I've just moved away from that. I think Faye Weldon would be up there. And Salman Rushdie would be interesting to spend a bit of time with, I think, too. Yeah, and Howard Jacobson, but probably Faye Weldon. I think she'd probably be number one, because she was writing it all so long. You know, she was up there when feminism was first doing great things, and Life and Loves of a She-Devil, such a good book. I remember, love that. Bought it and reread it again recently, and that's just one of them. So yeah, I think a day with Faye would be a good way to go. Throw a bottle of wine in as well. That could be an interesting conversation, I think.
What's your most overused word or phrase? The one you're always having to edit out? Oh God, gosh. Might have to ask. My husband says I finish too many sentences with also, so that tends to go. I can't think. If I was working on something now, I'd come up with, oh yeah, I use that a lot. I have to change that. I think it's more about I've got the wrong word, and I go through and think, no, that doesn't sound right. So I agonize, and I can't think of an example, but I agonize over finding another. And it's not difficult. You can click on the word on the computer and look up synonyms and find other words that mean pretty much the same thing. I have a lot of people waking up in the night thinking about things, but I do that. So, I go to bed quite early these days. I didn't always, about 10, but I tend to be awake. I've been better lately. I haven't been waking up till about 4. But I have been in the past waking up about 2:30, and then I can't get off again. So it's lay there thinking. And then I got the smartphone, so it's lay there and do my updates or check the social media, see what's there, do a bit of Sudoku, Minesweeper, a few games just to keep the cogs turning. But
don't tend to get off again. So if I have a lot of people awake thinking things in the night, it's because it's what I tend to do. And it's a good time to think of things because there's no distractions, no one else talking to you, nothing to go and do. It's just you and your thoughts. So maybe I should have them doing it at another time, but the night works for me. So if it's good enough for me, it should be good enough for them, really. But I try to change when I can, if there's a viable alternative, put it that way.
Yeah, another author recently said that their characters were always shrugging, so they had to change, which made me laugh.
I guess that, yeah, I have people looking off over other people's shoulder. I know what they mean. On the other hand, that's quite a good thing because it's almost showing rather than telling something about somebody, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
If so and so shrugged again, it's just what they do. It's their way of, well, I'm not going to say anything about that. I'll just whatever, which is a word I like a lot. No, I had the main character in fairy tales was wearing a locket that she's always consciously or unconsciously just playing with, toying with, and it's just to show that it does mean a lot. So I wouldn't get rid of it because it's there for a purpose. But no, I can't think. Do I have them shrugging? I don't have them pushing their hair back, or not a lot of hand wringing going on. No, I think it's generally thinking things that are waking. Yeah, they do just tend to wake up in the middle of the night and start thinking about something when they probably be better getting a few more hours sleep. But we can't always control those things. So yeah, I should probably get them some sleeping tablets and give them a few hours, and they might be a bit more healthy anyway.
Have you made friends with a lot of authors?
A few. I was talking about Steve, who does my beta reading. I've got, and they're all authors like me, we all love the big time. I've got a friend, Linda, in India, who's a poet, and her book recently made #1 she writes Christian poetry, #1 on Amazon India, which she was really pleased about. I've got Nancy in Washington State, who runs a Facebook writers group I'm on. She got me writing poetry because she decided to have a month of, she'd put up a picture prompt on the group every day and just said, just take it, write 3 short paragraphs or something. So I thought, yeah, I can do this. And then the first one, I took the picture and I sat down to write, and poetry came out. Not sort of the old-fashioned rhymey thing, very free verse. But I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I posted it and she liked it. And I thought, well, I'll see if I can carry on doing that. So the whole month, and she's in Washington State, so she'd post about midnight. And if I was still awake, I'd check the phone, look at the picture, and then go to sleep with the picture in my head, and then hopefully wake up with an idea of a poem I could write to it. And at the end of the month, I had 30 odd poems. So I made up a little book of my October poems from it, just all written to these pictures. So yeah, she's become a very good friend. And then she did the same in November, and they were all based around American Thanksgiving. So I've got a book of Thanksgiving poems as well. And she's been putting some more pictures up, and I've been doing my own thing. But yeah, I never meant to do poetry. So Nancy's become a very good friend and I don't know quite why that happened, but go with the flow. If my brain wants me to write some poetry, I'll do it, so something I wasn't expecting, and that's good. But yeah, she's become a very good friend. So I've got at least 3 very good friends, and a few people who aren't writers necessarily. They just happen to be people that somehow we've become friends, and we're on various groups, and they've got the same sense of humor. So they post things that I find funny. I post things they find funny, or whatever. So yeah, about three at least, probably about half a dozen at different levels. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But then I just didn't really know what to expect with social media anyway. But yeah, so I've got that's 3 other authors at least, and others who we have a nice acquaintanceship, and we'll discuss things occasionally if we're in the same conversation. Yeah, but Steve, Linda and Nancy are authors good to know and good to bounce ideas off of. And that's very helpful, and that's part of what writing groups are for, I think, isn't it? So we can ask, and I see so many questions going up from people I don't know in other groups. They're just group members, and they'll post something and say, does anyone have an idea about this? And if I think I've got something useful to say, I'll chime in. And that's very helpful. I had people, giving me advice, giving me ideas, reading what I've done and saying, you could maybe change this a bit. So that's all right. There's an alarm going off somewhere, but it's not me. It's somebody else. Oh, my husband's just rushing through to turn his phone alarm off. It's not mine, and that's I can see mine. It's not mine. I know it's not mine. Yeah, no, it's I suppose one. I wouldn't dare to say we're friends, but when I started reading psychological suspense thrillers, I found one called Roses Are Red by Miranda Reichs, which I really liked very much. So I went, and they're on Kindle Unlimited, so I went and found some more of her books. And I was reading these away, thoroughly enjoying them. And then I checked out her website, and she mentioned a writers group called the Writers Block on Facebook that she was a member of. And I thought, I'll go and have a look at that, a writers group, it'll be good. So I joined, and it's run by Emily, wonderful lady, which has been very good. But Miranda's part of the group, so occasionally she's in there making a comment. And when I wrote You Know What You Did, she actually read it on Kindle Unlimited and gave me a 5-star review, which made me incredibly happy, because she's very successful, and she's done, must be a dozen or more books she's written by now. She's got a publisher, which is, in fact, this is great. She self-published her first psychological suspense thriller, from what I understand, and a publisher found it on Kindle Unlimited and approached her and said, we like your book, we'd like to take it on. And she had to give it a new name and a new cover, but you're not going to say no, are you, if that happens, I think. I don't think I wouldn't, I'm not sure anyway, but yes, she got taken on by a publisher, which is great. But it was really very kind of her to read my book and give me a review, and I posted it everywhere, bragging rights time to so that, because it's a good feeling. She's successful, and if she thinks it's worthy, then that makes me feel good. So I wouldn't dare to say I'm her friend, but we're on chatty terms on Facebook and on Instagram, and I've read her books, she's read one of my books. That I'm good with that, yeah. So that's been a very good thing, and I'm pleased with it. Yeah.
What's your biggest dream?
I suppose that that one of my books will suddenly catch the public imagination and millions of people buy it. And no, I'm not big on dreams. I used to like realism when I was studying literature at university. And I mean, dreams are great things, but you wake up at some point generally, as far as I can see. So, but yeah, I do have ideas. I mean, I do those little fantasies, when I don't know, you're on the train and it catches fire and you're heroic and you rescue people, or you're at a concert and the pianist who's meant to be there gets stuck in traffic on the way and can't be there, or something happens. But you're a musician and you happen to know the piece, so you get up and fill in, and everyone loves, we all do those little fantasy things, but they are just that, they're not going to happen. But in terms of the really, yeah, I like that there are people out there who have read my books and have said nice things about them. And if a whole lot more people read them and said nice things about them, and I got some more money, that would be, I wouldn't mind that. I could live with that. But the fact that some people are reading them and the fact that I've actually got them together in the first place, I think is very good. So if it never gets any bigger than that, well, I've done it, and the feeling of writing a book. It's an achievement. I mean, you look at it, you think, well, look at all those pages. I filled those with all those words, and all got worked out in here. So I'm kind of pleased with the achievement. But yes, there's a book called The Alchemist by Paul Coelho, which my husband liked the look of, so we got hold of it. And if you've read it, in the forward, it says that he published it, and this is before ebooks, but it sold one copy in the first year. And then the second year, it sold another copy, and they suspect it was the same person that bought the first copy, probably buying it as a present for someone else. And the publishers weren't too impressed, and it looked like he was going to lose his contract, all sorts. And then somebody translated it into English, because he's Mexican, I believe. And so it went out in another language, and somewhere down the line, it caught the public imagination, and it really took off. And he's a very happy man, and he's writing other books, some of which I have to read. So say, well, you know, it's a slow process. You think, oh, I'm going to write this book and everyone's going to buy it. But no, you've got to do a bit of Amazon advertising and put it out there on social media. And so, I mean, mine didn't do a lot to start with, but recently they're gathering a bit more momentum, which is a good feeling. You think, well, yeah, keep going. Hopefully it'll keep picking up, and you might just achieve something decent, which would be good. So yeah, if it's good that some people are reading them. If a lot more people decided to read them, yeah, that would be a dream. That would be a good thing. I'd like that. I suppose that's pretty much it with being an author, isn't it? I've had a lot of good stuff in my life. If the writing thing would go large, as it were, I'd be, yeah, chuffed, I suppose. Good word for it. Very pleased.
What's the last book that made you cry?
Say that again, sorry?
What's the last book that made you cry?
Oh, wow. I wouldn't say it was the last one. I cried a bit writing some of mine, some of my own, actually. There's and it feels that you feel a bit soppy. I think, should I be doing this? Should I? Yeah, if you're crying, other people might cry. No, the big cryful book of my life is, and I wrote about it this morning on Facebook, actually, The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot, classic. Don't know if you ever read it. I've read it. It really affected me because I got, it sort of awakened my feminist conscience at the age 14. And at the end of the book, I mean, I've read it loads of times. I have a copy. It was a very important book for me because I grew up about the double sexual standard, you know, men and women, which was the 19th century, and it hadn't improved a great deal by the 1970s. And in some places now, I'm not sure it has terribly. But this book, it just hit me that I was so angry with it and upset, and the injustice to this Maggie, this lovely young woman in it. So, and I cried a lot of it through anger, but at the end I just cried because, oh my God, it's just so unhappy at the end. So I've read it, so I read it regularly, and I know what's going to happen. It's not going to change. I still cry my eyes out at the end. It still has that effect. And you think, well, it shouldn't. You know, the first time you read something or see something, it's going to affect you. When you know what's going to happen, it doesn't get you in the same way. But it always gets me. I just can't get through it without a box of tissues the closer it gets to the end. But I've read so many. I can't really pin something else down, except for sitting writing my own and crying and thinking, stop being soppy. Maybe you shouldn't be writing this if it has that effect. But we like our books to affect people, don't we? And if they throw it across the room in anger or cry at it or, I don't know, burn it, throw it in the bin, I don't know, at least it's elicited some kind of emotional reaction, which is what we want to do, really, isn't it? I think. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah.
Mill on the Floss has a very different reaction for me. I was forced to read for my GCSE or A-level English literature, and I just have memories of like, oh, it was so long, and I have no desire to ever read it again.
Well, that is different taste, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yes, what was it? I mean, I have a lot of classics I like, but some, I have a theory that an awful lot of classic books, if they were written today and taken to a publisher, they wouldn't get published. It would be the sorry, not for us. No, it's too long, it's too this. But I've tried twice. It's one defeat. Les Miserables. I think the best thing anyone ever did with that, in my humble opinion, was to make it into a musical. Because I've twice, and recently I thought, years ago I tried reading, I couldn't get all the way through. And recently I thought, I'm going to do it this time. So I sat down with an online version, went through it. And it's the priest that shows Jean Valjean hospitality, and then when the police say he's nicked your silver, he says, no, I gave it to him. Really, I gave it to him. It's okay. You get 50 pages about this priest before the main story even starts. You get his life history, which, to come up, and then it's just it keeps going off on tangents, and you think, come back, I want this main story, please. And I just got to a point, I can't be doing with this. So maybe third time lucky, but I'm really convinced it just wouldn't, the publisher wouldn't touch it today. So it's only my opinion. But so whoever said, I think we'll make a musical out of this, and that, well, they laughed all the way to the bank, really, didn't they? But everyone knows of it now in its musical version, which is great. It's a great telling of the story, cutting out all the unnecessary verbiage, shall we say. But so yeah, I've had books. Henry James, I just can't get on with his books. Yeah, if I'd been given a Henry James at GCSE, what was it? Do you know what? I think I might just leave school now and go and work in a shop or something. But no, that Mill on the Floss just appealed to me somehow. I don't know. Maybe I don't think I was a badly behaved little girl, but there was something about, maybe she was the little girl I would have liked to be, really. And that's something else with writing. You give your characters characteristics, make them do things you'd never have the courage to do. But you give it to them in a book and you think, oh, yeah, great, go for it, do that. Enjoy yourself doing that really bad thing. And you know what, I'm going to let you get away with it as well. It's a nice feeling of power, I think.
Yeah, it is. If you were to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Oh gosh, that would be interesting, because I think some of them are no longer with us. There was an actor called Tim Pigott-Smith. He was there was an ITV series, The Jewel in the Crown, of Paul Scott's Raj Quartet, made in the early 80s, and he played the really, really nasty villain Ronald Merrick. But saw him in a couple of theatre plays. He was they did not long before he passed away, actually, King Charles III, and I can't remember who wrote it off the top of my head, but he played the part in the theatre initially, and they made a shortened and abbreviated TV version. He played King Charles III in that. It was just an actor I liked. I liked the way he acted, so I wouldn't mind him to dinner, I think. Who else? Gosh, I'm not massive on famous. You see, I've forgotten, probably Salman Rushdie, I suppose, and Faye Weldon would. Germaine Greer, Australian. Love her, like her style. She's so unafraid of things, even when she's up there now, but she's still feisty and fighting, and yeah, that would be an interesting mix, wouldn't it? I could just. We've got Germaine Greer, probably Salman Rushdie, Tim Pigott-Smith, and I suppose Faye Weldon too. I'd just be serving them the food and drink, really, wouldn't I? And listening. Yeah. And I'm sure there'd be a lot to be said there. Probably, Germaine would probably dominate a bit, maybe Salman as well. As Tim would interject, he'd listen and interject some thoughtful comments. Thoughtful but meaningful comments, stuff that made you think. And Faye, she'd pretty much, I think she'd be in there too. Yeah, that would be interesting. Heaven knows what I'd feed them.
Takeaway.
Takeaway, yeah. And you know, I did dinner parties years ago, and there's so much hassle for and I would always let things burn, because you think, yeah, I've got to go out and put something on in 5 minutes, but you're listening to someone who's saying something really interesting. Oh, another 5 minutes, it'll be all right. I think it'd be just far easier to have people around to just send out for pizza, you know, get the wine, get a bunch of, get takeaway in, and then you can just enjoy listening and talking to people, can't you? Which is what they're there for, really, not to judge the condition of your cooking. I think people used to think. So not anymore. We've moved on from then, I think.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
This was a very long time ago. Difficult to remember. I don't know. I think I tried not to have one, because all the girls at school were having crushes on people and sticking pictures of them inside their desk lids. And I thought it would be cool actually not to have a celebrity crush. So I didn't do that. I was the cool one that didn't have the picture taped under the desk lid, and they're all swooning over whoever. And I was, oh, well, whatever. I'm not that interested, really. You know, I don't need. No, I just didn't really do it. I can't say no. I can't really think of anyone that I was swooning over. I just decided the cool attitude of, I'm not interested in that kind of thing. I don't need to be, because it's all image then. And I don't want to be like everybody else. I'm going to be different. So I didn't do crushes.
What would those closest to you say your worst habits are?
He's in the next room. I'm tempted to call out and ask. Shaggy dog stories, I guess. No, I'm trying to tell him something, and will you just get to the point? Because I'm saying, well, you know, when we went there, and so was there. Do you remember that person that your mother used to know? Just tell me what you want to tell me, but I'm giving him the whole backstory on it, and maybe that's part of writing. You see, if you can actually set a scene, and I mean, if I wrote the books the way hubby would like me to write them, they wouldn't be very long. You know, we so went there, did this, came home, did that, had a phone call with so and so, went to bed, heard about something, read about it in the news, but you know, none of all the scene setting and who else happened to be there and what was going on. I suppose that's the worst habit, not getting to the point. So I suppose writing's a good thing, because you have to get to the point at some point.
But you also need all the other stuff there, so it's just perfect. Yeah.
It's got to be there. No, I can go on a bit and not come to the point, and he hates that. It's just tell me what. I think it's yeah. Also, when we went shopping to get me an engagement ring, we went into the first jewellers and found a ring, and it was a great ring. But I insisted that it was my right to go around all the other jewellers and check all the. And then we went back and got the first ring we'd seen. He was very good about that, but we were just getting engaged, so I think he was a little more forgiving and tolerant about it. But I just felt, you know, you're only going to do this once. You might as well go out and check absolutely everything that's on offer. So yeah, taking time over doing something that could be done a lot sooner, but. What's life for? If I have time, I've got to use it somehow.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything that I haven't asked you that you want to tell us about.
I don't think so. I'll probably remember it later on, and I'll send you a big Facebook post and say put it up. No, I've enjoyed speaking, and it's good. It's interesting to get up on a screen for the first time. I probably won't watch this, or I will, and I think, oh my God, I look horrible, I sound horrible. Never having really been recorded on anything before, but no, I'm glad. I'm really pleased that you have this Facebook page and that you've given me this opportunity to be interviewed and just get up and talk about me and what I do and how I feel about what I do. And hope that maybe some people might feel that my books might be worth having a look at and a read of, because they're all on Kindle Unlimited for anyone that's got that. And I can't think of anything, but later on I'll think, oh yeah, I should have said this, but this is me. There is more, but the books are all there on Amazon. Laura Lyndhurst, have a look. There's some poetry, there's some psychological suspense, there's even some literary fiction. Third volume about to come out. If you fancy a look, please, I'd be very, very honoured if anyone would like to read them and give me a review, or at very least just a rating, because they count on Amazon too, to pushing you up the ranks. No, it's been very nice talking to you, and thanks because you work all day, so it's good that you make the time to do this at the end of it, when you probably want to put your feet up and get a drink and just veg out and watch something interesting for the evening, or read a book, which is the other option when there's nothing on the box. And we've been going through that, haven't we, with the lockdown, stuff not being made. Yeah, I've been watching Walter Presents Foreign Language Crime Series on Channel 4, Catch Up. There are very good things on there, actually. But that's how much. No, I want to thank you for interviewing me, giving me this chance. And I shall keep in touch through the group. And hope you enjoy my book when you get to it at some point in the queue of books. You must have a stack of them looking at you a mile high. Pretty much, yeah. I don't even look anymore. No. Just take the next one off the top. Yeah. No, it's a good thing to do. And I thank you for this chance to get on screen with you. And thank you. It's been a pleasure. Absolutely. So thank you very much once again.